Shalom and greetings from Jerusalem. Jane, once again, just sitting here at my small kitchen table in Jerusalem. In a couple of hours, when the sun sets, we are entering 24 hours, which is very, very special here in Israel. It's called Yom Hashoah. It's the day where we honor and remember the 6 million Jews who were brutally murdered in the Holocaust. It all begins tonight at Yad Vashem, the Holocaust Museum, with the state ceremony where, among others, the Prime Minister and the President of Israel is going to give a speech. And then there's going to be 6 Holocaust survivors who's each going to lit a torch, and we are going to hear their personal stories. Then tomorrow at 10 a.m. the sirens is going to sound throughout Israel and everything is going to come to a standstill. Then there's going to be a wreath laying ceremony at Yad Vashem. And then after that, the public is actually invited to go to Yad Vashem today on that special day and to lit a candle with the name of a Holocaust survivor. I did that last year, actually, together with my mom, which was very profound for both of us. So from sunset tonight until sunset tomorrow, it's Yom Hashoah, where this nation comes to a standstill and we remember the horrors of the Holocaust. Places of amusements and entertainments in Israel is going to be closed for those 24 hours. So it's so easy to say never again, and we remember the number of surviving Holocaust survivors is getting smaller and smaller. They are literally dying every day. So it's easy to say never again, but what are we doing about it? Well, let me show you something. I have said before that one of the features that I like about Facebook is the sections of memories to see what I have been sharing over the years. Well, the same hate that caused the Holocaust is very much alive today. We are seeing that in all of the horrendous terror attacks that's taking place towards the Jewish people, murdering the Jewish people. 2 years ago, as it comes up on my Facebook memory, 3 people were brutally butchered in the city of Eilat when 2 terrorists, one armed with an axe and then the other one with big knife, literally butchered 3 Jews, 3 family fathers, butchered them with axes, chopping them in their heads, murdering 3 Jews and injuring several others in Israel 2 years ago. When we have these heinous terror attacks, what happens? Well, here they are celebrating it. And where is this? Well, that's in Gaza. This is in Khan Yunis, the Arabs living in Gaza, celebrating the murder of the Jewish people. Something we see after every single terror attack. 5 years ago, my phone was blowing up. We had 600 rockets flying from terrorists inside Gaza into Israel in one day. One of them hit a car and a young man was killed when a rocket hit his car. 600 rockets 5 years ago fired into Israel by Hamas, ISIS in the Gaza Strip. So evil has many faces, but it has the same father, it has the same root, and that evil is very much alive today. What happened on October 7 is the worst atrocities and the worst massacre of the Jewish people since the Holocaust. 1,300 people was brutally killed, massacred on that day. We are not talking about planes came in and they dropped bombs and 1,300 people were killed. We are talking about vile, demonic, evil terrorists breaching the fence into Israel, and then they massacred, they slaughtered, they tortured, they mutilated 1,300 people. Women were gang raped in front and from behind. Metal rods, iron rods were shoved up in their vaginas. Their breasts were cut off while they were alive, while they were being raped. Women were being raped in front of their families. Young teenage girls were brutally being raped. Babies were being executed, burned alive. Fathers were being mutilated, tortured in front of their children, in front of their wives. The list goes on and on and on. This was the worst massacre carried out towards the Jewish people since the Holocaust, and it happened only last year. The atrocities are unthinkable. Hamas terrorists, they recorded it and they shared it out to the world. For a lot of people around the world, they were, of course, rightfully so, shocked to the core that this could happen. But what did I just tell you I shared about 5 years ago? 600 rockets were fired into Israel on one day, and a couple of people were killed when their house was struck by rockets. Hamas has a charter that's calling for the eradication of the Jewish people. That's calling for a new genocide of the Jewish people, and that's what they tried to carry out on October 7. If the Israeli military hadn't finally gotten their act together, sorry for phrasing it like that, and came down there and started fighting them, they would have carried out a much bigger massacre into Israel, because that's their goal, the eradication of the Jewish people. That's why they have been sending rockets in since they took over the Gaza Strip many, many, many years ago. So that same evil is very much alive today. That's the evil we see when we have yet another heinous terror attack, like I just shared with you 2 years ago. We know this here in the Middle East. I know this. I have been living here and I've been sharing about these heinous terror attacks for years and years and years and years. Even today, a female terrorist was arrested with a knife down in the old city of Jerusalem. So we are very much aware that that evil exists today. For many people around the world, you are saying, well, that has nothing to do with me. I'm not in the Middle East. Yes, the Holocaust was horrible, and I stand with Israel in condemning that, but other than that, it has nothing to do with me. Well, you are sadly mistaken. If you feel you are far away, well, I can bring it closer to you. Why don't you take a look at your daughter or your son or your nephew or your niece or your cousin who's right now tearing down campuses in America, screaming for from the river to the sea, Palestine would be free, calling for the annihilation of the Jewish people, calling to liberate Palestine, to get rid of the Jews, to finish what Hitler started. Right there, I brought it closer to you. Where are all the parents to all of these young people in America? Or let me bring it to you in Copenhagen or Paris. Whatever nation you are in, where you have these huge demonstrations calling from the river to the sea, Palestine will be free. Liberate Palestine, which is support for Hamas, who tried to carry out a new Holocaust towards the Jewish people. Don't say it has nothing to do with you. Don't say that you don't have anything to do with it, or you can't do anything about it. That's what I wanted to say. We are living in very, very serious times, where anti-Semitism has seen a spike like never before, where Jews are being attacked, assaulted all around the world, and where your sons and daughters are marching in the street screaming for the annihilation of the Jewish people. In a very, very well orchestrated attack on the campuses, especially in America, that has been fully funded by Qatar and other Muslim countries for years and years and years, putting in their ideology towards and in all of these students. And now we see the results. Israel was brutally attacked on October 7, when Hamas, ISIS, Nazi terrorists, and Islamic Jihad terrorists brutally murdered 1,300 people. Many of those people were peace-loving people who actually stood for a two-state solution, who actually were friendly to the Palestinians. Did you know that many people living in the kibbutzes who was attacked went to the Gaza border and they picked up sick Arabs living in Gaza and they brought them to hospitals in Israel where they were treated, where they got surgeries? Yes, that's what Israel did. They took in sick people living in Gaza and they treated them in their hospitals by Jewish doctors. They let in hundreds of Arabs living in Gaza to work inside Israel every day. And what did people do? They collected evidence. They collected layouts of how these kibbutzes were, how they were placed, who was living where, who had dogs, where were the guns. And they passed all of that on to Hamas so they could carry out this very, very well planned and orchestrated attack on Israel, on peace-loving people living in the kibbutzes who had helped the people living inside Gaza. The innocent people living inside Gaza, who every time a Jew has been murdered in a terror attack or rockets were flying into Israel, they were out handing out sweets. They were celebrating because they wanted the annihilation of the Jewish people. All the so-called innocent civilians in Gaza that the whole world is screaming about now being victims. The one who every year sent 50,000 children to summer military boot camps, learning how to liberate Palestine and to murder Israeli soldiers. When they are doing school plays in Gaza, or for that matter, in the Arab areas in Judea and Samaria, they are doing school plays about how to murder Israeli soldiers. These are the innocent civilians that the world is screaming about. When Israelis were kidnapped, taking hostages into Gaza on October 7, children, men, women, the innocent civilians in Gaza was in the streets cheering when Jews were being paraded down the streets, spitting at them, pulling their hair, cursing them. That's the testimonies of some of the hostages that was released. That's how they were treated. Some of them were even held in houses by the innocent civilians in Gaza. Never again is easy to say when we see a spike of attacks on Jewish people around the world and your daughter and your sons are marching in the streets, whether it's in Europe, whether it's in America, or wherever you are, calling from the river to the sea, Palestine should be free. That's the same hate that the Nazis were using when they were trying to eradicate the Jewish people during the Second World War. And here we are. That's where we are at in 2024. What are you doing about it? What are you doing about it? Not doing anything is actually doing something. For such a time as this, we still open our Bible. And what do we read? The history of the Jewish people, the history of Israel. Prophecies were being fulfilled. The Jewish people came home in their God-given homeland, the one and only Jewish state, with so many other Arab Muslim countries, but they still want the one and only Jewish state. And for that reason, it's perfectly fine to carry out a genocide towards Israel on October 7. And then when Israel goes in to cut the head of the snake, to take out Hamas, Israel is being condemned because all the innocent civilians in Gaza, the one who has Mein Kampf in their house, the one who has weapons in their house, the ones who have tunnel shaft for Hamas terrorists in their house, the failing mainstream media that stopped reporting about what the IDF found in Gaza, how every other house has weapons, tunnel shafts, hiding places, schools, mosques, playgrounds, all cover for Hamas, all weapon storage facilities for Hamas, tunnel shaft beneath them, even all the UNRWA schools. But your mainstream media, they stopped reporting about what was really happening and how Gaza was turned into one huge terrorist nest. And yet, the Israeli military, the most moral in the world, is doing their best to avoid civilian casualties and going after Hamas. And that's what they have been doing the same time. In a few hours, it's going to be Yom Hashoah, and we remember the 6 million Jews who were brutally murdered under the Holocaust, but also the 1,300 who was brutally slaughtered decapitated, mutilated, gang raped, burned alive on October 7, because evil is the same evil during the Holocaust and during today. And for such a time as this, we cannot stay silent. We stand for Israel, we stand for God, we stand for the truth, we stand for history, we stand for the Bible, which is the land of Israel that God gave to the Jewish people. Please watch this video. I know it's a little bit long, but please share it out also for it to reach more people, as I'm so tremendously limited on especially Facebook. For such a time as this, we will always, always stand with Israel. Bye.